carrying and burying them, caring for boys and girls who lacked property and parents, and being attentive to aged slaves and prisoners. Alan Kreider observes, they interpreted these actions as a work of love. And they said, V-Day, look, how they love one another. They did not say, Aude, listen to the Christian's message. They did not say, Lege, read what the Christians write. Hearing and reading were important, and some early Christians worked to communicate in these ways as well. But we must not miss the reality. The pagans said, look, Christianity's truth was visible. It was embodied and enacted by its members. We need to embody our behavior, and we Lutherans have real trouble with that because we don't want to be confused with works righteousness, and I'll say more about that. But I think our major problem is our embodied Christianity is not different enough from the culture for anyone to take notice. In preaching, dare to name the behavior the Christian church expects. Worship, Bible study, prayer, generosity, service, advocacy, justice. We promise such things in baptism. Outline the expectations that people will grow in grace. Don't assume people know or will learn by osmosis. Here's where you need to make disciples of your members, not the neighbors. People aren't looking for a church. They are looking for an encounter with Jesus that changes their lives. Amen. There are some of those in your churches, and I think those are the ones in whom we need to invest. Have you noticed that many Lutherans are really allergic to embodied practices of behaving in an overtly Christian manner? And sometimes, lest someone confuse our behavior for works righteousness. For Lutherans, it's all about right understanding. We are justified by grace through faith, apart from works of law, except that's not how people live out their baptism, their faith. Dying and rising with Christ is more than an intellectual exercise. Alan Kreider observes, in Christianity's early centuries, conversion involved changes in belief, belonging, and behavior in the context of an experience of God. The church reached out to people who needed to belong, widows, orphans, and the poor. It expected people to behave a certain way, to act their way into who we are in Christ. The church was convinced that believing comes from doing, and that truth only becomes real to us when it touches the skin. I think one of our problems is we want people to belong who really don't need belonging. Right? We want rich, successful, yuppie young families. Yuppie still work, young families. I will make a confession to Almighty God and to you, my brothers and sisters, that during my 3-month sabbatical, I spent many a Sunday morning sipping espresso, watching Meet the Press, and wandering out to the dock. And I confess to you, I did not feel diminished. We don't need people who don't need God. Right? Yeah. I couldn't do that forever, but for 3 weeks I could do it. You know? Being converted to a community's convictions involved becoming the kind of person who belonged to that kind of community. And this meant that conversion in the ancient church was at least as much about changing one's loyalties and one's lifestyle as it was about changing one's creed. Baptism is more than intellectual assent to a doctrine. Baptism is embarking on a chosen way of life that includes behaving differently. I'm quoting from Alan Kreider's The Change of Conversion in an Age of Post-Christianism. It's a fun little book. You can read it in an afternoon. The best way to preach sanctification is to make justification really big so that people have some gospel to respond to. We want to avoid the things are bad, they're really bad, they're so bad, you're bad, he's bad, she's bad, we're bad. Jesus died on the cross. And so you better do this, and so you better do this. I hear a lot of those sermons. Or I hear, things are bad, you must, and you can't because Jesus told you. Right? If the gospel is over, he said it this morning, if the gospel is big enough, we cannot help but respond. The gospel will want us to be better people. But the gospel's got to be big. Big. So I would look at, oh, Professor Satterlee, the gospel's in there. See, there's that one sentence right in the middle of my 30-minute sermon on doing justice and loving kindness and walking humbly with God. Right? How vivid is your gospel? How alive is your gospel? And how much room in your sermon does your gospel take? Right? Don't tell people what they should, must, or ought to do. If I saw should, must, or ought to in a sermon, if I heard it, at the end of the sermon, my hand would go up. And what happens if I don't? What do you mean? Well, you said I should do this, I must do it, I ought to do it. What happens if I don't? Well, nothing. Then don't use it. Right? Right? Describe what God is doing and invite us to be part of it. Which means you need to know what God is doing, right? Which means if you want to know what God is doing in the neighborhood, you better be in the neighborhood. And then I guess the question that I'm leaving you with in both lectures is, for you, what is the gospel? And I ask that question because in Northwest Lower Michigan, whenever we want to bring someone into the synod, or someone wants to come to the synod, I do a Skype interview with them, and I have 10 questions that I ask.